let's see whether I can share my screen. Oh, got something in the chat already. Let me just double check that. Oh no, that's fine. Warning from snow. Oh, you got snow, Tammy, have you? Fantastic. Okay. I can't use my controls very easily when on my Mac when I've shared it. So I apologise. I might, Donna, ask you to have to do some stuff for me, and I just need to move you out of the way. Okay. So I've called this presentation "Our Industry Under Investigation" because I think that there's definitely room for us to have a look at our industry in a bit more detail, look at where we want to go, and more importantly, start working more collaboratively. There are lots and lots of pockets of people doing lots of really good things, but they're doing them sort of quite in small little sections. And there's an awful lot, I think, of not bad feeling, but sort of trying to be very aware of what we don't know, and people being very uncomfortable about that. And so I'm on a bit of a mission along with a number of other people to try and elevate the industry. And what I've started with, because this was something that was specifically asked about, was awarding body requirements and how can you become an awarding body. So I thought the first thing that we'd start with was what actually is an awarding body or an organisation. And this word Ofqual, which keeps being bounded around, what is it? So first and foremost, Ofqual stands for the Office of Qualification and Examinations Regulation. And what they do is they look after, they are the gatekeepers, if you like, of all qualifications, whether that are GCSEs, A levels, AS levels, and vocational and technical qualifications, which of course is where we sit. That's our platform, is vocational and technical. So Ofqual, if you like, are the overall parents of the family. They look after the qualifications. And what they have done is that they have created national training organisations, and the one that has been set up by the government for our industry is HABIA, and they are known as the standard setting body. And they cover the standards for hair, beauty, nails, spa and aesthetics. So they work very closely with what they call expert working groups. And I'm sure that there are people in this chat who are part of the expert working group. And these are people that are actually working in the industry. So they're not educators, they're not awarding organisations. In fact, they don't want anybody in education, and we have to fight to get in there to actually be part of the standard setting process. Sometimes it's quite difficult because it needs to be what the industry want. So, excuse me, they create something called the NOS, and this is another acronym that's banded around, and somebody private messaged me recently and said, I don't mean to be thick, but what on earth is the NOS? And I think we forget in our industry that actually there are these acronyms that people don't know, and if they haven't gone through a traditional academic background, if they've come to the industry in a different way, they might not know them. So the occupational standards are created by HABIA, or Skills Active. I'm not quite sure what the relationship is, whether Skills Active own HABIA or whether they're the same thing anymore, but maybe somebody can answer that if anybody wants to really know. But they create the standards. They are not qualifications. They are the standards by which the qualifications are then developed. So it's a little bit like the technology behind a washing machine is the technology behind the washing machine, and then the product manufacturers come along and they take that technology and they create a washing machine that's got a timer on it, that's got a dryer in it, that's got a spin of a certain level, that, you know, all of these features and benefits of that particular product. And that's exactly the same as an awarding organisation. So the awarding organisation creates standards to create the qualifications that then sit on something that's called the RQF. So another acronym, what is the RQF? The RQF is the framework, and this categorises the qualifications in England based on their size and their level of challenge or difficulty. And this is really important as well. So this is where we get our sort of our standardization of whether it's a level 2, whether it's an entry to level 1, so it's an E3 that it's called, or E1. So we've got two different things there. First of all, we've got the size. So the size goes up from an award, then a certificate, and then a diploma. And when these were first created, probably about 10 years ago, I remember there being a lot of analogies towards a jigsaw puzzle. And I think that that's where we are today, and what potentially is being changed with our qualifications is that we had a jigsaw approach, so that you could do a little bit here and a little bit here and a little bit here and meld them together to create various things. So as an example, if we take skincare, there is an award in providing skincare, which is just one thing on its own. So you just learn about skincare, you don't learn about anything else, it's just skincare. You can then have another award, which is an award in understanding the beauty industry, which would be all of the health and safety, the legislation that goes around having a business, understanding this stuff really, as to sort of where we sit within the industry. And then you might have a customer service as another unit of accreditation, and then another one which might be promoting products and services. And then if you clustered those 3 units or 4 units together, that would give you a certificate, because that would be the size of what the government said was a certificate level. And this is where you then get the credit values. So one unit might have a credit value of 15. And so it works all the way up to a diploma. And the diplomas that we've got at the moment tend to have a set of core units, then they have a set of technical units, and then they have a set of optional units. And different awarding organisations will package this up so that they offer different things. And that's something, when we come on to the next slide, is really important to remember when you're looking at awarding organisations. So 1 credit roughly equals around 10 learning hours. So that gives you some idea of, when you're building your packages, how much time you should be spending on delivering and developing the qualification. We then have levels. So you can have an award, certificate and a diploma at level 2, but you can also have an award, certificate and diploma at level 3. And they go up to level 8 in the UK. Okay, so the entry to industry for beauty therapy tends to be a level 2, and level 3 then would be the advanced level. So this just gives you an idea of the levels. Now this is in the UK. It's actually in England only, actually. Take that back, it's in England. So if you were to do a level 4, that actually is equivalent to a degree. And I think this is really important to remember when you think about the qualifications that are being developed, because it's not just the level of skill, it's everything around that qualification. It's communication, it's the level of IT, math skills, English skills. All of those things are actually or should be, caveat of should be, embedded into that qualification. I think one of the problems that we've got now is that people just pick off these pieces of jigsaw puzzles. So they haven't got a complete picture, they've just got a piece. So they're walking around with this piece of jigsaw puzzle and not really knowing quite where it fits into anything else. So it's not really a level whatever, because it's not a diploma. And if you haven't got the diploma level, you haven't got the full picture, you've only got part of it. So when we come to think about awards, certificates and diplomas, if you've only got an award, you've only really got one piece of the jigsaw. And I think that's probably the best way to help to understand it, hopefully. You might see something in your travels about QTQ. This is all about the total qualification time. And this is actually assigned by the awarding organisation. So this is something that will be different, and you will find when you're looking at awarding organisations that there is some differentiation with them as to what they expect. So this is not something that the government put in place, it is purely the awarding organisation. Having said that, the awarding organisation have to submit their qualifications to Ofqual to have them sitting on the RQF, the framework. So when they apply, the TQT is actually part and parcel of their application process. So I mentioned that those levels were for England only because Scotland have their own qualification framework. So this is where things get really complicated and really confusing when you are hearing somebody who is in Scotland talking about level 7 and you're thinking, but we only go up to level 8, or something that's a level 11, but we only go up to level 7. So you have to bear in mind where somebody is coming from. I'm just going to pause there, Donna. Are there any questions? Okay at the moment?
Yeah, no, we're good. Me and Kim have we're keeping an eye on the chat and answering. It's fine.
Fabulous. Thank you so much.
Working well as a team.
I will download the questions as well afterwards, so I can put them in a question and answer, because if some people have got the questions, then other people want the answers as well, probably. So I'll do that. Okay. So let's have a look at awarding organisations. So the ones in purple are the ones that you have probably heard of, and City and Guilds is by far the oldest awarding organisation. However, it hasn't been offering beauty therapy qualifications since 1878. They were actually designed to offer qualifications for the industries such as, well, basically all the craftsmen, so all the crafts guilds, so things like leather creating and book binding and I can't think of any more, but those sorts of crafts, and they are still actually going and are actually making a bit of a comeback now. So City and Guilds are very, very focused on trying to support the sort of the small craft in industries. So then we have, in fact, these should be the other way around, because IIHBC, has anybody got one of those qualifications? That's showing your age, because IIHBC was really the founding qualification in beauty therapy, which was developed by Wally Sharp, and I wasn't actually sure whether I've spelt the Wally right or whether it was double LIE. I couldn't remember and I didn't have time to check it. But this was the forerunner of VTCT. I don't actually know when VTCT was developed. I'm thinking it was 80 something or other, but I might be wrong, it might be a bit later than that. So they were the forerunner of what is VTCT today. And then following along that was ITech. Oh, Kim, thank you. Do unmute yourself and jump in there. I got that wrong. No, you're muted. No. Kim, I can't hear you.
Sorry, I thought you was going to go down to Sibtech and Tedesco next. But you went up. So
I did, yeah, sorry.
Yeah, but I do want to say something about Sibtech and Tedesco, but yeah, I'll wait till you finished your ITech. Sorry.
Wonderful. No, that's fine. I should have put them the other way around. So ITech was developed in 1973 by Dr. William Arnold Taylor, and he was actually, I believe, a physiotherapist, but he may have been a doctor. And so a lot of the work that ITech did in the early days, and I think Jane Falston then became CEO of ITech, was very body based, was very sports body rather than beauty. So they had that take on it, and not to be confused with IHBC that are now part of FHT. So there is a non-Ofqual recognised part, but that's maybe for another day when we're talking about accreditation stuff. And then Sibtech and Tedesco, I haven't got a date, but they are, so they're in 3 levels. I'll come to you just 2 seconds. You've got the face and the body, which is Sibtech, and then the creme de la creme, which is the Cosco, which is also used internationally. So Kim, come on, do your pitch about Cosco.
Okay, right. Okay. Firstly, want to qualify that CIBTAC and Cosco are two different organizations. So CIBTAC was founded out of BABTAC, which is British Association of Beauty Therapy and Cosmetology. And over a time of doing those BABTAC qualifications, they decided they needed an awarding organization. So they put the awarding organization together and started off by offering what we call bespoke qualifications. And those were, as we would know, as a diploma now. Now, when I was chair with them, we decided to have a look at offering also Ofqual qualifications. And so that's when we became an awarding organization and now offer a whole range of qualifications. Most of CIBTAC's graduates are international. And the thing that has worked out of that is that over time, what I've personally has found with examining is that candidates are centres are now picking up specific things and specializing in only those specific areas. There's very few now that you see that do the whole diploma. They either do just nails, or they do just facials, or they do just things like that. Now, when it comes to Cosco was one of the oldest, next to, I would think, City and Guilds. They're from Switzerland. I'm the vice president of Cosco UK. They're an organisation that was based in Cosco. Everybody had a look at having Cosco because it's known very, very much internationally. It's run by sections, which is about 27 different sections, and a board which is based in Switzerland. Again, you'd have the Cosco diploma, which would be aesthetics and body. That's how they originally started out. So everybody would do 2,000 hours. The qualification, you would not get your certificate until you'd done a certain amount of hours working within the industry. Now you can do a postgraduate. So if you already got that qualification, you can then go and work in the industry. However, now they've also got some of the qualifications accredited with the Scottish body, which is the phase section separately. And they're looking on, I think, you know, to the future, how they would absorb. So that just gives you an idea of that they are two separate organizations. They were together in the past, however, they are actually separate.
Fabulous. Thank you so much, Kim. Appreciate that. And I'll change my slides, and maybe you can give me some dates to put in there as well at some point later. Thank you. And then there are some smaller awarding organisations that you may not have heard of. And apart from ABC, which only have reflexology as part of their complementary therapy option, they don't do any beauty. Focus Awards, I haven't been able to actually get hold of them to find out what they're up to at the moment, but they are actually an interesting option, maybe. And anybody who wants more information, I'll find out a bit more about them. But they do have some qualifications that might be an option for smaller organisations. But the other ones, so Gateway, TQ UK, BTech, Open Awards, OCN, they tend to have entry to industry. So awards that would be, if you are wanting to work with maybe getting women back to industry or back to work, and because a lot of these have got a lot of additional skills. They've got a lot of communication, they've got a lot of research. They are a very interesting, so certainly the AM awards are very, very interesting if you are wanting to add something to your business that is not necessarily doing a normal route from beauty therapy into aesthetics, you know, that way up. If you're wanting to kind of have a bigger option in education and training. Kim, did you want to add in something there?
ONC, to a small number of places, do seem to focus a lot on level 4 qualifications, so the aesthetic ones of lately. There's only about 2 places that I know that offer their macroneedling, hydrofacial plasma, etc. That is actually overseen by them. So it's an Ofqual qualification.
Yeah, when I went onto the Ofqual site yesterday, I couldn't really find very much that was available now. I mean, I know that there are they're going through a process at the moment, so there's going to be a lot of change coming up over the next couple of years. A lot of the qualifications have end dates coming up soon anyway.
Yeah.
So the question that was asked, which identified or made me sort of think that this would be a good thing to do, was what is involved with becoming a regulated qualification centre? So these are the things that when you are starting to think about, would you like to offer these, you need to have as your heading. So with anything, with any business, you need to do a business plan. You need to think about what it is that you want to offer. And I think when I've been talking to people over the last little while, that's the big thing that I always ask them is what do you want to do? Who do you want to teach? What do you want to teach them? And why? You know, what have you got to offer these people? And I think that's something that people don't think about. They just think, oh, you know, teaching is a great thing to do. I'm really good at doing gel polish and I want to teach everybody else. And that's not necessarily the best thing to be doing. You need to know your why. Because unless you know your why, you can't work out which is the best product for you to use and which is the best organisation. So you need to start with the products that each awarding organisation offer, and they are very different. So when I say products, I do mean qualifications. And there are some real differences with what they offer. Not every organisation offers the same thing. So you need to go onto their website and you need to look at what is available. And you also need to look at the end dates, because if they have an end date that's coming up very, very soon, there's no guarantee that Ofqual will accept it back onto the framework. There's no guarantee that the organisation will reapply for that qualification. And this happened with ABC Awards and reflexology a couple of years ago. They decided not to reapply, so they didn't put it back on the framework, and all of the reflexology centres that were with ABC suddenly found they had no offering whatsoever. So it is important to be aware of that. You also then need to look at the approval criteria. So that's different from each awarding organisation. So when I say approval criteria, some awarding organisation will insist that you have certain qualifications, that you have a certain size premises. So you might have to have a realistic working environment. So your beautiful shed spa at the bottom of the garden that you do your treatments in may or may not be perfectly all right if it works as a realistic working environment. Some organisations might say, yeah, happy days. Others, no, you have to jump through hoops. You have to do an equipment plan. You have to do a floor plan. All very, very different. You need to look at the policies and procedures. They all have a requirement for you to have a policy and a procedure for absolutely everything. And that's quite arduous to actually work your way through. I think as a business, you should have a policy and procedure for all of those things anyway. But when you're now taking responsibility for other people's lives moving forward, giving them a qualification that will either help them or hinder them, you need to have your policies and procedures in place. And that's something that big shout out for Donna, because that is something that she specialises in, not necessarily just for regulated qualifications, but for accreditation as well. You need to look at the approval fees. Is it a one-off? Is it split payment? Is it yearly? You know, what is the requirement? IQA and EQA. So IQA stands for internal quality assurance and external quality assurance. So each organisation will have a different requirement. So you need to know exactly what that is, because when you're putting your business plan together, if you have got to pay an internal quality assurance to come and do X number of hours to look at X number of things, then that needs to be part and parcel of your business plan as well. All awarding organisations will also want to know what are your plans. They'll want a business plan. They want to know how many people are you going to bring to their table. Some have a minimum spend. So a minimum amount of certificate fees that you have to be put through per year. Now, no awarding body will kick you out because you're not meeting that minimum spend, but you will have to top it up either with additional products or just by giving them some money. So there might be an annual fee, and they might pay extra for support visits if you need them. You also need to be very, very aware of their terms and conditions. So what happens if you're not meeting the grade? Will they just put a block on you? You know, how long have you got to turn things around? So the word is suspension. Kim?
Sorry, I was just going to say that the SIPTAC and Sitting Guilds, they tend to have a that you would have an examination within a number of years. So one examination at least within 2 years. And also they would say to you that there's a fee for each day of examination, but that fee would be accumulated from the amount of candidates that you've got on that specific day. So
I'm going to come to those.
That's the only one.
When we get to the SIPTAC one, if I haven't got that quite right, maybe you can jump in there.
Yeah.
Thank you. So let's look at SIPTAC. So SIPTAC approval fee is £600. There's no VAT involved in this, by the way, because anything to do with education is VAT exempt. So that's a good news. They do it in 2 parts. The first part is a £300, which is the paper application. If you tick all the boxes there, then they will do a visit, and the next will be paid. They also have a £30 learner registration, so that needs to be built into the fees. Now, they have no IQA specifically because they are end tested, and this is a feature of a SIPTAC qualification, which is slightly different from some of the others. So you're examined basically, so you have a group of learners that you take through their process, and at the end of their course there is a practical examination where a visiting examiner, somebody like Kim would, or Colette if she's on the call, would come along and do the practical day, and it's split into 2 parts. They sit a written exam which the marking examiner takes away with them, and they do a practical. So the costs involved with that, £750 per day. Half day, especially if it's a resit, is £350. If you had 2 sites, like I know some of the centres do, they have a this site and a that site, then there is an additional fee for your second site, but the practical and the assignments are kept the same. But and there is a £225 annual fee. So hefty. Quite hefty on the money side, but you are paying for the kudos of SIPTAC and then CIDESCO. Kim, is there anything you'd like to add on that? Have I got that right?
No, you've got that pretty right. I think the approval fee's gone up a little bit.
Okay.
Sure, yeah, just by 100, I think. But yeah, that's correct. I mean, we did ask at the time when I was chairman and bringing in the Ofqual qualifications, we did ask the centres if they wanted to have continual assessment, and 100% voted absolutely not. They wanted the examiner to come in and examine them. And it is, it's good, because I believe strongly there are, as someone has said on social media, there are good centres and there are bad centres, and there are good trainers and bad trainers. But I think it also gives that we are going there and being quite strict, actually, and making sure that standards are the same all over the world. And it's not an easy exam to do, but it's absolutely worth it for anyone who's out there. But I'd say that as well for, if they're doing VTCT, if they're doing ITech, if they're doing Cosco, whichever one they're doing, please do it. That's what I'd say to them. It's just another one to look at.
I think it goes back to your business plan of what you want to create, for whom, and what what you're offering, really. And everybody has to sort of make their own sort of decisions based on what they know. And I think for me, it's about trying to find out what you don't know, because we don't know what we don't know. So how do you find out what you don't know? It's this really kind of difficult thing, but thank you, Kim. So let's have a look at ITech. ITech also have an approval fee of £600. Again, there is no IQA or IV, sorry, that's an old term, slipping in there, as they are end tested exactly the same way as CIBTAC. It's paper, it's practical. They have slightly different requirements in as much as they have a minimum of 40 students per year and a minimum of 10 students per exam. And there is a fee of between £38 and £90 per student, depending on what you're doing, whether you're doing just say facials or whether you're doing body work or you're doing whatever it is. So again, you would have to go back to looking at what products do I actually want to offer to my learners, and therefore do your business plan, do your cash flow forecasting and your profit and loss based on all of that, so that you can come back to the fees that you're actually going to be charging for it. VTCT, just slightly different. Approval fee is exactly the same, £600. You do need IQA support because it is continual assessment. You also have EQA support, but there is a minimum spend of your certificates of £1,000 a year. And topping up to that if you don't make it. And if you had an additional site where assessments were taking place, you would pay an additional £450. And if you wanted to add on an additional sector, so let's just say, for instance, you're doing beauty therapy, you want to add hairdressing, it would be an additional £300. If you were doing hair and you wanted to put in the technical qualification, so the teaching of the award certificate and diploma in teaching, then again it would be another 300. However, if you were applying as a new site, spelled minimum wrong there, if you're applying as a new site, then you could apply for multiple all in one go, and they would probably just lump it into the 600. You wouldn't then have to apply for 300, but you would have to put the £450 on. Okay, so the key figures there are 600 and 1,000 that you need to have in your head. So we then jump up to City and Guilds. City and Guilds have an approval fee of £2,000. IQA and EQA is also supported, and a minimum spend of £5,000. Okay, so a different bracket altogether. However, some major advantages of working with City and Guilds is that you can have additional sites and there is no extra fee. So if you are planning to have multiple pockets all over the place, then City and Guilds may be more cost effective for you. If you are wanting to add additional sectors, so you're wanting to add different schemes, it's only 200. So again, slightly cheaper in that respect. The certificate fees, which I haven't put on here, which is an admission of my part, the certificate fees are very, very different as well. Because City and Guilds work on unit accreditation, you can deliver a 1-unit program and certificate just that 1 unit, and it costs anywhere between, depending on what it is, £10 and £25. So the most expensive is the reflexology as part of the complementary therapies. The cheapest is a level 2 unit, which is £10.15, I think, or no, £10.30 at the moment, which is a huge difference if you've got somebody that's just wanting to come in and do the 1 unit. The caveat on that is just because you can doesn't mean to say you should. So think again about your delivery of your provision. Just because you can just offer facials, the health and safety, the understanding the industry, promoting products and services, a client consultation should be built into your training program, but you don't need to assess it and therefore certificate it. So just saying, slightly different approach. VTCT have a minimum cluster of 3 units. So therefore, by default, I think you're looking at about £60 as an absolute minimum for each little qualification. So again, swings and roundabouts all over the place. Can we have a look at any questions and answers there? And now would be the time to ask any questions, because the question that I was aiming to address on this specific section was, how do you go about applying? And the application process is the same for all of the awarding bodies. You fill a form in and you send it off. But before you do that, you need to do your business plan. You need to have a look at, who are you looking to educate? Why should you, not why should you, what qualifies you to help these people? So what qualifications have you got? What CPD? All of the awarding organisations will ask for CPD. So what have you been doing over the last 12 months? What do you plan to do? How can you elevate your knowledge and skill? Who else is in the organisation with you? What support mechanisms have you got? Who's going to look after safeguarding? Who's going to look after onboarding? Who's going to look after quality assurance? Who's going to market? Because at the end of the day, awarding organisations are businesses in their own right, and they need to make money, and that's why they've got the sort of the minimum spend there as well. So let's do some questions and answers. I would like to leave accreditation for another time. I think it's a sort of another bag, if you like, of information. But accreditation is another option. It's not, I don't think, or rather it doesn't have to be the poor man's option. It shouldn't be, I can't afford to do this, therefore I'm going to do this, and therefore it's of a lesser standard. It shouldn't be that. But I'm going to put it out there. It is. And because there is so much differentiation between here and here, nobody's checking, nobody's looking. What you do over here and what you do over here can be poles apart, but absolutely nobody knows. There is no way of differentiating. Actually, I think there is a way of differentiating. It's already out there. And I think I'd like to save that for another time, because I think it's a bigger conversation. So
We've got some questions in the chat.
funding, Rebecca. Oh no, Joanne, whoever. Okay, let's touch on funding, because it is something that you know, people, unfortunately, they think that by working with a regulated qualification, they will automatically get funding. No, absolutely not. Funding is a completely different scenario, and awarding bodies will help you comply, but they will not get involved with you getting funding at all. The rules on funding changed in about 2014-15 greatly. So what happened before that is that the government would have a primary contract with an organisation, and that organisation would be able to subcontract, and they did on a very, very wide scale, and it was rife with fraud. There were a lot of cases where awarding bodies would do audits and find that actually certificates were being issued to people that didn't exist, people that died, people that had never ever turned up in the training organisation. And so what training organisations were doing was really fraudulent, and they were just wiping the funding. There were two pots of funding basically for 16 to 19 and 19 plus. And the first thing that they did was get rid of the 19 plus funding. They allowed it to be still there for the first level 2, first level 3 up to the age of 24. So that meant that the government still have a pledge to support learners in their first level 3 qualification. And that's why the maths and the English and the key skills are all embedded within that, because it's not just about giving somebody a skill that they can do, it's about building their skills up in all areas. Those of you that have been in FE, we won't go any further with that one. The situation that we are in now is that the government actually put in place in about 2014-15 they stopped the provision for subcontracting, which meant that organisations can't subcontract. They're not allowed to. What they are allowed to do is there's a sort of a loophole of almost taking on and working in association with, but the learners belong to the contract holders, not you. So you are just a sort of like a middleman. So somebody else's name is on their certificate, somebody else tells you how many hours, somebody else tells you how much you can charge for the course. And of course, they always charge the maximum amount of funding loan that they can get through the 19+ funding loan, but they don't give that to you. So I think it's around about £3,500 that you can claim, might be even more than that, for an advanced learner loan, which is online with the university fees. But what they would then pass on to you as a training organisation is diddly squat. And what happens is that you as a training organisation have much less than if you'd have gone out there and actually established yourself as a training organisation and worked with people in, you know, however you want to work with them, to actually pay their own way, whether that's a payment plan, whether it's over a period of time, whether it's bite-sized learning so that they're paying for bits along the way. If you did that, you are much more guaranteed to have the money that you need to create the support that you need to look after the learner to get them where they need to be. And one of the problems is that that people tell me is that we have no money to be able to train these people, and yet we've got to get them through, because there's this big qualification that they've got to have because that's what they've paid for in their learning loan. And so they've got to get this qualification, but we've got no time to deliver it. So we're just going to do as little as we possibly can. And that's why so many people come out the other end with a piece of paper that they can't do anything with. And actually they don't really earn, they haven't earned it because they haven't done the work, because the training organisations. So my advice to you is, if you are coming into education and training because you think you're going to get funding, forget it. Go back to your business plan and look at it from a completely different point of view. Dan. So I would question you. So I don't know whether you can see in Dan's questions, he's asked, he wants a multi-use academy. So mainly refresher to existing people with existing qualifications. So my question is to you, why do you need to have regulation? I personally think that actually you need to build your brand. You know, people come to us as a training organisation because of what we do, not because we are City and Guilds accredited. Oh, a lot do, believe me, a lot do. That City and Guilds carries a huge badge of honour, same as Cosco and all the rest of it. But people come because of what we're able to do for them, not because they're going to get a piece of paper at the end of it. So I honestly think that building your brand is where you start, so that people come to you because of you. Because at the end of the day, you can run a training organisation with any of the awarding organisations and still not give the learners what they need. New starters, yeah, absolutely. So to have that baseline qualification, entry to industry, I'll bring you in, but then I will train you and I'll give you more of what you need, is very powerful. Yeah. So Dan, let's talk offline. There might be something I can help you with. City and Guilds, does the EQA visits come with the approval fee, or is it on top? No, with City and Guilds particularly, the EQA is all built in. So they have a minimum spend of £5,000. You can use that however you want to. So if you buy a day's EQA visit because you want the support, that is part of the 5,000. If you want to buy their smart screen products, that is part of the 5,000. And so you can have two sites. You can work in partnership with somebody else that offers the hairdressing and have hairdressing as part of your provision, and beauty therapy that is part of your provision, but they're in two different places, but you're working together collaboratively. And both of those certificate fees will come together to feed into your 5,000. So for me, that's what I do. I have multiple sites. I have multiple, working with sort of smaller organizations. We all work together for the one 5,000 fee. So you can have one part of the business that just focuses on the education and training. By the way, if there's anybody that wants to focus on the education and training, I am looking for somebody that might like to come in and do that with me. So just putting it out there. Donna's smiling at me. Yeah. Any other questions that we haven't answered? So I think I've answered that, Rebecca. Once you get approval, is it easy to tap in? No, it's not at all.
There's a question about, Rebecca asked about the IQA as well, and how much that would be. It depends. I think it depends on the person you're buying in, doesn't it? What their hourly rate is.
Yeah, what we've done recently in the Facebook group that we've got is we've actually created a database of assessors, educators, EPA support, all sorts of things, so that if you are wanting to get in contact with somebody who offers those services, that you can. So you can go through the list, and my advice is always do your due diligence, please. You know, phone them up, have a conversation with them, ask them to send you their certificates, find out what their CV is like, to find the person that can help you. Daily rates, it depends on how far they've got to travel. Have they got to stay overnight? What's their specialist skills? So if you're looking at something that is really specialist and you need an IQA with that specialist knowledge, you are probably going to pay a lot more than if it's something that there's somebody on your doorstep to.
I'd also add to that, just for me, it's more about like they're actively assessing and verifying as well, and not that they've got the qualification and they haven't used it in 5 years or something as well. So it's got to be that they need to know those standards inside out if they're going to pick holes in yours, for want of a better word. So, you know, they need to be actively doing that. Like if I'm not actively assessing when I've had a break, then I take myself off the IQA kind of rota for centres that I have done IQA work for on an hourly basis. So it's just, I feel like that's just my due diligence, but you need to just double check that as well, I'd say.
I absolutely agree. And each of the awarding bodies will do, if you like, an audit each year. They will do a visit, not necessarily in person anymore. And I've still got my box of stuff I had to package off to my EQA. But part of what they want is they want to know, so what have you been doing? You know, is your own personal development, what have you been doing? How have you been elevating your skills? How have you kept in touch with what's going on, both in industry, but also within academia, but also within processes as well of running your business. So it's not just about just delivering the skill, it's about everything else that's around there as well. The other thing I wanted to say about IQA is that there are two different approaches to IQA. There is being the person in the room that looks at the practical skills going on and makes a judgment as to whether they meet the regulatory requirements. But there's another option of IQA, which is much more about support and helping centres with systems and procedures. Now, that's something that actually doesn't have to be limited to an organisation that works with a regulated organisation. That's something that I think that anybody, and this is me getting on my soapbox now, but this is something that anybody who is offering any kind of training ought to have somebody in their organisation that acts as their IQA. And it's not necessarily an official hat, but it's somebody to talk to, somebody to do course reviews with, somebody to you know, think about, am I doing the best I can possibly do by these learners? What else could I do? How could I make it better? You know, am I putting in the reviews with the learners? Am I benchmarking myself against what I said I was going to do for them? And that's just basically a combination between customer service trading standards, but also, you know, for your own benefit as well. And the only way in which we, I think, as an industry is going to get better is if we start taking responsibility for our own actions in our training. And I know that there are a huge number of training organisations that are absolutely phenomenal in what they do, but for every great centre there's an atrocious one as well that's just doing atrocious work. And it's how can you, or how can we as an industry work together to elevate those standards? And Donna and I have got some ideas about what we want to do, but it has to be a buy-in. It has to be a pledge of support. It can't be a regulation. It can't be a licensing. It can't be anything like that, because it won't work unless we have licensing, and we're not going to have licensing, not for a little while. There might be some things that happen. There might be some well, there are some organisations, aren't there, with the FMP as an example, but it has to be something that we, as a group of people, say, I pledge. It's like the Brownie Guide promise. I promise that I will do my best to do my duty to my industry. There we go. That's what I'm going to do. I'm going to create a pledge, which I'm going to ask people to pledge. So you're going to sit there and go, I promise that I will do my best. Like a Spock or something like that. So there you go. I've put it out there now. That's what I'm aiming to do. Create a pledge, a badge of honor that you can all use to say, yes, thank you. Thank you, Joanne. A badge of honor that we can all have, that we can put on a website that says, I pledge. Gosh, and maybe sort of also the other thing, and I know I said it's a time for another time, and I will come back to see if there's any other questions, but I did say that, I've lost it now. Oh yeah, the sort of the accreditation. Every single type of course that we've got in our industry, whether it is a PDF that's been shoved online, or whether it is Donna's face, or whether it is a full-blown course that's assessed, checked, examined, verified, whatever, I believe they all have their place. There is some value for someone somewhere, but we need to know what that value is, and we need to know whether it's right for us. So within this kind of pledge, I also want to create a sort of a badge system where you can identify what your course does. So if it is this PDF online is just to give you the latest up-to-date information on this piece of legislation that you need to know. Don't need to assess it, don't need to do anything with it. It's online, it's there. It would have a blue badge that says that's all it is it's just for you to look at and to take knowledge and information from. All the way up to, this is a whatever colour that says this is a full-blown, I deliver it against NOS requirements, I assess it, I get case studies, I get it IQA'd, whatever. You have to jump through 50,000 hoops to get this qualification, and it's got this badge on it, so that people then know. They might look at that and go, oh no, that's not what I want. I actually only want this, or I only want that. Because I think that's the problem, is that people don't know what they're getting. There we go. Thank you, Katie. Do you want to say anything about VTCTs? You've said there that they have 2 EQA visits. Are they auditory, or are they support and whatever? Do you want to just jump in there for me?
Yeah, sure. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, you get 2 visits a year. I mean, ours have been remote visits for the past, and it depends on your risk level, risk rating as well. If you need to have a actual visit or a remote visit. So like, we're very low risk. You're very low, medium, and high. So if you are very low, like where you have, I think we had 1 remote and 1 actual visit last year. I think the year before we had 2 remote. I think it depends on time of year, EQA availability, you know, what qualifications you're having looked at. amount of students, etc. But yeah, you get to, if you have to have another one because you are a higher risk rating, I'm sure they're £400.
Yes, they are.
Yeah, I'm sure that I've never had that, so I don't know.
We've
But
had it
yeah.
up back to the screen, but yeah, they all charge for additionalities. So, and I think, Katie, the word you use there is risk, and I think risk is actually the key word. So you will, as a centre, you will be on a risk managed, and actually this is also what IQA is all about. IQA is about managing risk. It's what are you doing, who's doing it, have you got a very new assessor within the organisation, have you got somebody who, like Donna said, you know, maybe he's not actually actively working. That's managing risk. You know, it's the same as this whole risk assessment with the COVID risk assessment. It's the same thing. We do it day in, day out with everything that we do. It's nothing new, nothing scary. It's just looking at what's going on and managing that risk, and external awarding bodies will do it as well. And that's the key difference between accreditation and regulation, is accreditation won't always manage any form of risk. It's just, you know, you buy in. Kim's just made another good point, is that definitely FHT, definitely, not FHT, sorry, CIBTAC and HABIA will endorse qualifications. This is something very different, but HABIA, correct me if I'm wrong, HABIA only endorse, so Dan, this might be something for you, they only endorse sort of postgraduate refresher, things that people have already got a qualification for. And I think that there is space for an endorsement, which is entry to industry, which is different from accreditation, is different from linked to insurance. It's an endorsement, and maybe we can create our own endorsement with our pledge. Oh dear. So I hope I've answered all your questions.
It was just one more, just in regards of roughly how long it takes once you've completed a form to kind of getting up and running when you apply.
Okay, so I'm going to say normally.
Non-COVID times.
It's pretty quick, but it does depend on your application. So what will happen is it will go into the customer service team. It will then be put to the specific industry lead. So within City and Guilds, we have technical advisors. It then kind of goes through a cascade. So I think the smaller the awarding body, probably the quicker. I don't know whether systems and procedures are sort of in place. Then probably what it would do is it would go to an EQA. The EQA would make contact with you and then make an appointment to come and visit you. But it depends on the documentation that you've supplied. If you've supplied absolutely everything that they need, if you already have accreditation from another centre, if you've got all the qualifications that they want, it's a pretty straightforward process. And you wouldn't then be on what's called direct claims. So you can get approval to train, approval to use the badge, but you wouldn't be able to claim anything until you'd have your very first visit. And as long as your first visit didn't throw up any anomalies, they also do want to see original certificates, and that's a requirement as well, because there are some very good forgeries around, and people can, you know, say that they've done all sorts of things that they haven't. Yes. Fabulous. Well, I've taken up my hour. That's quite good timing. I think a couple of things I'd like to ask you to either put in the chat or message me is, what else would you like? Is Saturday morning a good time? At the moment, obviously. What else would you like to do? I think desperately we need to get onto the issue about accreditation, the differences with the accreditation and how we can safeguard ourselves, and what to be aware of. They go, yes, let me get into this one. But if there's anything else that anybody needs, or you want to talk on more of a sort of a personal, or even, you know, help me with my business plan, I don't really know where I'm going, I don't know where to start, what is a business plan? I know that there are lots of people on here that would be more than happy to help. Contact me by all means. If I'm not the right person for you, if I don't have the subject, I'll reach out to any of my contacts. And in the Facebook group that we have got, the assessors, educators, verifiers, which is hair and beauty, nails, aesthetic, everything, there is an Excel spreadsheet on there. Everybody who has given their information has given it, known that it will be downloaded at some point, so there is no GDPR issue, I hope. Please don't do anything terrible with it once you've downloaded it. It's really just for your own benefit to look at. If there's anybody, hello, if there's anybody that's there that you kind of think actually they've said that they will be a support mechanism, reach out to them. Many people will do it for free because they actually just want to elevate the industry, but you know, depending on what it is, there might be a small fee to pay if they're going to come and visit you or help you with a business plan or something. So yeah, okay, fabulous, thank you very much, bye for now, and hopefully see you next week. Okay.